Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. It's my pleasure and honor to host this daily conversation as we discuss three crises on this show: health, economy, and race. We're always looking for guest ideas, theme ideas. Please email me, sree@sree.net, SREE at SREE.net. Today is episode 147, and we're going to take you to news you missed. This is a show that we like to do once every few weeks so that we can tell you what you missed and you can learn from what you missed, because there's so much going on. Today, our colleague Bob Anthony will be with us, coming back for a fourth time to help me host this show. He's a veteran tech journalist. He's at New York Bob, all spelled out, on Twitter. Please follow him and connect with him. And please share this with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, all those good places. And you'll meet Bob in just a minute. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree, and thank you so much for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook University, and I am the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting business. Our motto: don't cancel your event until you talk to us. Don't even plan your virtual event without talking to us. You see my email address right over here. And please write in, and we'd love to chat. We love to geek out on virtual events. And we do dozens a month, from events for 50 people to an event for 100,000 people in 88 countries in 3 languages. So please contact me, sree@sree.net. We'd love to chat. If you're new here, or even if it's been a while since you've joined us, this is our show, our daily global show. We're able to do it because of our awesome producers, Rose Horowitz, who's at Rose Horowitz 31, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. They are both folks who signed up for a few shows, and here they are 147 episodes later. We've had more than 1 million viewers, 100 million social impressions, 260 guests from 53 cities and 15 countries, including the chief scientist of WHO. And tomorrow we have a very exciting WHO-related show as well. We are able to do this because we're in partnership with Scroll.in, which has more than 2 million followers online. And you can check out our archives at youtube.com/Sreenet, youtube.com/Sreenet. Before we get started, let's tell you about our sponsors and thank them. Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, a free certification course, now available. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have signed up, and so should you. I learned a lot making this workshop, making the videos, and I know you will too. So please check out mrac.co/social. We're also grateful to Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each box of handcrafted cookies provides 2 meals to those in need. Please use the code SREE, SREE, for 20% off. SREE for 20% off. Divinely delicious cookies on a mission, nunbelievable.com. And we also want to tell you about our other show, She's on Call, which airs on Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Drs. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Korean, general surgeons. They have guests. You can watch last week's episode with Ben Chang and Claudette Lejam. You can find it at She's on Call on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. And we are so grateful to all of you for being here. One last show to tell you about: Little Steven's Roadshow, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, August 6th. So that's tomorrow. Little Steven, you know him as Stevie Van Zandt from The Sopranos, from the E Street Band, from Lilyhammer, and Drew Carey from TV. They'll both be hosting conversations with music legends Alice Cooper and others, as well as Martha Reeves and Wayne Kramer, Nick Speed. This is all tomorrow. My team at Digimentors is executive producing this with the team there. We love doing this. Please check us out at teachrock.org/roadshow. teachrock.org/roadshow so that you can check out Little Steven's activism as well as his conversations about music. So check that out, teachrock.org/roadshow. All right, we're now ready to bring in Bob. Bob is joining us. We are so grateful to him. Hello, Bob. How are you?
Good to see you, Sree. Always a pleasure.
You've been here. This is your fourth time on our show. We are so grateful to you. I know you've had a long day of Zoom calls. Tell us why.
Today is the first day of the annual convention of the National Association of Black Journalists. And this year they're doing it in cooperation with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. So they're obviously, being the year that it is, they can't meet in real life as they had planned to do in Washington, D.C. So today's the first day of the big conference, and they have more than, I believe, 3,700 people registered to network, go to panels, and otherwise commiserate online. So, but that wasn't even my my only webcast and webinar today. I actually started today watching a Samsung Unpacked event. It's the day that Samsung rolls out its major products. So yes, it's been a very long day.
Very quickly, what are some things at the Samsung show that we will be seeing in weeks ahead, or months ahead, or years ahead?
Right, yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes they have problems, but today they held until last the newest version of the foldable smartphone, the new Galaxy Z Fold 2, 6.2-inch display on the front, which is fully functional, or you can open it up and it becomes a 7.6-inch tablet with there's no seam in the middle. It's a seamless screen, and you would think that screen would have to be made of some type of bendable plastic, but it is not. It's actually a micro-thin bendable glass, which they've engineered so that you don't get a seam when you open it. They didn't give all the details on it. September 1st is when they say they'll come back to us with more info. But as you can see, it's already on the website, and a lot of the basic details are already up there. This is the latest version of the phone, of which when they first ran it out had a lot of problems. So they're hoping this one goes a lot better.
So let me ask you, is this something that the world is looking for, a foldable phone?
I've said it before, I think right here. It might be the answer to a question nobody's asking. But if you want a phone, you bring a phone. If you want a tablet, you bring a tablet. How does this fit in? And is it durable enough to be reliable? So that's the questions I would have right off the bat.
Well, we're going to discuss a lot of news you missed, and this was because Bob, at the beginning of coronavirus, told me about a couple of stories that I had missed completely, and there's so much going on. So we're going to get to that. But we usually do the show, me, Bob, and Vandana Menon, our colleague who's the producer of the show with Rose Horowitz. But she's not here because she is in the news, covering the news directly rather than talking about news we missed. So she's in Times Square, where there's protests and lots going on. That is especially of interest to people who are interested in India. And so we're going to go to her right now so she can tell us the very busy day she's had. You and I have been hanging out in front of a computer, but she's been in the thick of the news and reporting live from Times Square. So let's go to her right now. Hi, Vandana.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, so thank you for being here. Yeah, that's right. You didn't see Bob, so here you go. This is our normal arrangement, the three of us, but unfortunately, we are not doing this. But you're out doing what people want to do, which is what reporters want to do: report. So talk to us. Explain, if you can, to both our audience internationally as well as in America, what is going on in Times Square right now. Why are you there? You've been there since at least 10 o'clock or something in the morning. So tell us, please.
Well, today is the groundbreaking of the Ram temple at Ayodhya in India. And this is a contentious piece of land. It's supposed to be the birthplace of Lord Ram. And it was where a mosque stood until 1992, the Babri Masjid. And that was razed to the ground by Hindutva supporters. And after which riots broke out across India, thousands of Muslims died. In November last year, the Supreme Court of India finally ruled that that piece of land should go to a government-run trust to build a temple. And today is the day that Prime Minister Modi laid the first brick. I believe it was a 40-kilogram silver brick. The irony, though, is that on 5th August 2019, India revoked Kashmir's special status and cut internet services. Kashmir for a whole year has not had fast internet, has not had at all. And the situation there is really bad. So it's a particularly difficult day that the Indian government picked to inaugurate this temple. So supporters of Prime Minister Modi and the BJP took out ads at Times Square, which people have showed up to protest. The ads only ran from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. On the billboard right above Hershey's. But because of a lot of advocacy campaigns and several people calling in and putting pressure on them not to run hateful ads, the ad has been taken down. But since about 7:30, there have been no ads, but there have been just protests, and the protests clashed. The Hindu side has been singing bhajans. The
We may have lost her, Vandana, but we'll see if she
can you see me?
Yeah, now we can. Go ahead. Video is a little, we can hear your audio, so go ahead and speak, please. Go ahead. Vandana, go ahead and speak, please, if you can.
Sorry, can you...
Go ahead, Vandana. We can hear, we can see you now. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, the internet is a bit shaky. Yes, so there are different camps. That's I think the pro Ram Mandir, pro Ram Temple side, and this side are the people who are protesting it. There are also protesters across the street. So this has been happening for the last couple of hours. Yeah, that's what's happening at Times Square.
So we're looking right now at your Twitter feed where you've done live tweeting all day. You're Vandana_Menon. So we want people to check out your feed and follow you. And here you can see your Twitter thread of what you've been posting. So so that people understand what's happening. Is there social distancing in these protests? Are people wearing masks? Please start with that.
No, people are wearing masks, but there isn't any social distancing. As you can see in the pictures that I took, I was standing above people, like on the stair, and trying to take photographs. I'm a bit nervous right now, actually. I'm not going to lie, but everyone's wearing masks, but I don't think there's any social distancing happening.
Yeah, so please be careful. We see some videos that you shared, and is it all peaceful?
Yep.
Even though the people, is it mostly
it's all
peaceful?
People are yes, it's peaceful. People are just shouting slogans at each other. Yeah, it's all quite peaceful. Zoran Mamdani is here. He was on our show. He's protesting with the South Asia Solidarity Initiative, I believe, against the Ram Mandir, basically.
Thank you.
So that's the situation.
Vandana, a question for you. First of all, we should just make it clear that this is not Hindu-Muslim in its entirety. There are many Hindus who are upset about the building of the demolition of the mosque and the building of the temple. The Prime Minister of India going there. So there are Hindus who are upset and Hindus who are not upset, who are cheering it. So we should make that clear that it is not a
Yes.
Hindu-Muslim situation. Go ahead.
One of the groups protesting here against the ads is Hindus for Human Rights. So they've been protesting for human rights, basically saying that running these ads at Times Square might be celebratory for Hindus or whoever truly wanted a Ram temple, but hurts the sentiments of the hundreds of millions of Muslims in India.
Got it. Bob, I know this is all kind of new to you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have a question for her about what it's like in Times Square, you probably have not been to Times Square yourself in many months.
No, but Vandana, we need to retitle the show as News You Didn't Miss, because we have you live right in the middle of things in Times Square. Thanks for the excellent reporting, and thanks for bringing me up to date, because when I saw your tweet, which went viral, one of your tweets, and I saw some of the trolling that you got, which is always a pain in the butt. I can see there's a lot of passion on both sides, and thanks for bringing me up to date in a nutshell, in just a few comments as to what's going on there. And I'll do some more of my own reading, but this is impressive. On this show, we don't always do live remotes like this, so congrats.
Let's ask Vandana, anything else you want to report that you want us to know before we let you go? And how have you had internet all day like this? Have you carrying multiple battery packs?
Carrying multiple packs. I've borrowed my cousin's spare iPhone to take photographs from. So I've been doing that. I had a friend come and meet me for lunch. We had a small little picnic in Bryant Park to take a break while protesting. And now honestly, my back is hurting. So I'm looking forward to going back and taking a shower, and I have to file my report on this. And
we appreciate you being here. We're just my father, who's watching from India, says the news from Times Square has been missed by the Indian media so far. There's so much happening in India with coronavirus and with the Ram Mandir itself that they've not. So you're doing reporting that he has not seen yet. So that's good. Apollo is watching from Vegas. I've been hearing about the Hindutva rally. Is it really Hindutva here? Is his question. I don't know if we still have her with us. We may lose her. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, Bob, about the technology that it takes to do in these crowded situations? I can give you an example. I was in with NASA to watch a rocket launch, one of the space shuttle type launch, and the internet went out because we couldn't get, you could do even texting was hard because everybody's on the phone in a situation like that. So talk about that for us, please. And everyone who's just joined us, Bob Anthony at New York Bob is a terrific technology journalist. He has 1.2 million followers on Pinterest and is my tech guide. So go ahead, Bob.
Well, this is a good example of the things that 5G technology is supposed to take care of once it gets fully built out. At any given time in Times Square, there's going to be a lot of density of people doing things. And usually the density is a lot worse than this. But on a night like this, where there's protests and whatnot going on, a lot of people are streaming. And that takes a lot of bandwidth, not just text messages on a normal day in Times Square. Everybody's kind of streaming this thing. So I'm not surprised that her connection crapped out like that. And Times Square does have its own Wi-Fi, but you can imagine that it doesn't really, it's not that heavy bandwidth a solution. So this is the kind of thing that 5G smartphone technology will bring us. It'll allow more people to stay connected faster because the technology allows for more connections per cell and more interaction, two-way conversation.
I know you're not prepped really to talk about all of this, but what'll that mean, that 5G world that we hear so much about? What'll that mean for us in situations like this? and for even just home viewing of videos. A lot of us are not really downloading videos as much as we used to because we live in a streaming world. But where will we experience this kind of fast connection? What will that mean for everyday users?
Not only will the connections be faster, the two-way abilities of 5G will be such that you can transfer that data more confidently faster. This is why you have autonomous vehicles. They can look, they can hear, they can sense, all in milliseconds, and send all of that information to a computer. 5G supports that, whereas current technology does not. So just the amount of data that you can handle without a lot of power is what's coming. Different flavors of 5G, but as you can, if she had a 5G phone and a good 5G connection, she would have been crystal clear in up to, say, 4K. That's what it would do. Instead, we got pretty good, maybe 720p with decent sound. But you can see what a little, you can see what a lot of extra bandwidth would have done. But she did pretty well.
And how far are we from that magical world?
The phones that Samsung they introduced, in addition to the folding phone, they introduced the Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra.
Sorry, Bob, I want to do breaking news. Vandana is back with us, so let's hold that thought.
Let's go back to the store.
Yeah. Hi, Vandana. Tell us what's happening, and also if you want to take a break afterwards and bring us anybody to interview, you're welcome to do that too, if you want them to come. But of course, 6 feet away, which is hard with the phone. So I want to be careful about that. But tell us what's going on. Is it dying down a little bit?
It's dying down a little bit. I don't know if you can see, people are resting. There are still songs and bhajans happening. The protests against seem to have disbanded. There are still some people all the way across the road who are protesting, but so far it seems to be dying down. There's a whole bunch of snacks and refreshments and things out as well. I might go help myself to a bottle of water. But
yeah, you need to definitely hydrate when you're doing this. So what have you learned from your time covering things like this in India and covering here? Is it still the same story, the same energy? How do you see it?
I think it's the same energy, but I think here there's less of, I think there's a general fascination here. So many people that I spoke to just showed up because, they wanted an outing, and they heard that there were going to be ads, and they haven't been out of the house in a while. Many people came in from New Jersey to check out the ad that was running this morning. They came in the evening though. And so I think there's less of an understanding of the political implications of the Ram Mandir. Everyone is more excited about the sense of community and the excitement of feeling Indian. And then once the protesters, people who were protesting the Ram Mandir started showing up, then I think it started becoming slightly more hostile. Because the protesters were saying, this Hindu India is not the India that we stand for. Secular India is the India we stand for. And I think that did not well with people. So I think everyone just kind of got caught up in the emotions of things.
Explain some of those words, Hindutva and secular.
Right.
What do those words mean for an American or international audience?
Right. So Hindutva is the belief in Hindu supremacy and Hindu nationalism. I guess that's the best way to explain it. Right now, India, the government in power is a Hindu nationalist government, the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party. And so, and the Prime Minister Modi has an incredible support base because he's a charismatic leader. And so there seems to be a merging, how there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. That's not exactly happening in India. And so there have been several people who are upset about the situation in India, mourning 5th August as the death of secular India. and the birth of Hindu India. Because today, like I said, 5th August is both the day that the first brick was laid and the day that it's been a year since Kashmir, special status in Kashmir has been revoked.
All right, we may have lost Vandana again. Bob, reflect on, if you can, what you were saying about that. There are more people just joining us. Oh, there she is again.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you, Vandana. We can hear you. I just want to show everybody my tweet from today that explains a little bit about what's going on. And this is what you're seeing here is my tweet about. I said the India of my childhood, the India of unity and diversity, the India of a movie, Bob, called Amar Akbar Anthony, Bob Anthony. There was a movie about a Hindu, Muslim, and a Christian name right in the title there. I said it ended in December '92. So just to explain very quickly, there's a mosque in India that was built on what has been called by Hindus the birthplace of Lord Ram. And whatever you believe, whether that was originally the birthplace of the god or not, the way to bring it down, the way to handle this is through the courts. Instead, these protesters went in, right-wing Hindus, and tore down the mosque and broke it apart with tools handmade with their hands and with hammers and things like that. And this is why the leading Indian magazine of its day called it a nation shame. India is a country that prided itself on its secular nature, and meaning, like America says it's a Judeo-Christian country. There are right-wing Hindus who say, why can't India say it's a Hindu country? And India is home to one of the largest populations of Muslims in the world, very large in numbers, but percentage-wise small Christian population, Sikhs, Jains, all of these folks. There's even the oldest Jewish synagogue in the world outside of the Middle East is in Kerala in India. So that's the India I grew up in, where unity and diversity was celebrated. And now the muscular Hinduism is very much, Bob, like the muscular white supremacy that we see here. People hearing me describe all this, some of them will say, that's right, what is wrong with that? And that's something we're seeing in America, in India, and elsewhere, the rise of the right. But as I said, this started in '92. It didn't start today. And so what happened today is the foundation stone was laid in the temple by the Prime Minister of India. Just imagine, you can imagine Trump doing something like that. But another American president would not have gotten involved in this kind of dispute. Let's go back to Vandana if she still has a minute. And Bob, if you have any questions, please jump in as well. Vandana, tell me about the trolling that has happened, and I feel so sorry that you've had to deal with it.
I can't hear you, Sree. Sorry, I think I missed what you were saying.
Okay, no, but tell us about right now what is happening there in terms of the trolling that you've gotten online. It's only been online, right? So that's important. Can you hear me? I think you've muted yourself, Vandana. You've muted your phone. Let's go back to Bob. 1 second. Oh, so we lost Vandana there. Did that story, did that explanation help you, Bob, understand what's going on?
It did. It did put it into a better perspective. I didn't realize that the Prime Minister was laying the first stone. I can see where a lot of passions on either side could have been inflamed just by the act.
Yeah.
Depending on which side of which position you'd want to be in. But that was I learned a lot in that little snippet.
No, thank you. Well, folks, if you're just watching, this is news you missed and news going on live from Times Square. Today's a big day in India and for the global Indian diaspora that cares about the nature of India. And I want to connect it to what's happening in America, Bob, a little bit about white supremacy and what you have experienced in these 5 months watching with me as America in some ways has made tremendous progress in racial justice. I feel yesterday we talked to someone from the Native American community talking about the fact that the Redskins name has been eliminated, which I thought wouldn't happen for another 20 years. We have seen calls for racial justice. We've seen many things that have moved forward, but it's still a long way to go, isn't it, in this country?
Yeah, I remember having that conversation with a good friend of mine when I worked at the old Milwaukee Sentinel in the 80s. Her father was the tribal chief of the Menominee tribe in Upper Wisconsin. In fact, one of the cities up there is named Waukau, and that's her last name. And Hillary Waukau was the tribal leader. And I remember having that conversation about the Redskins even then. And it was just blown off, of course. Nobody thought that anything would ever be done about it. And I think it was around the same time, maybe a little bit later, and Mark Lee was here the other day talking about it, when Marquette, which is in Milwaukee, changed its moniker from the Warriors to the Golden Eagles. So it's been this changing of the mindset over mascots and images has been going on for a while. But yeah, I'm glad that we're waking up to the fact that things can change, and finally they are in Washington D.C.
Very slowly, though, and there's still the white supremacist in chief is still around, so that makes it hard. Let's talk a little bit. Let's see who's watching. Jonathan Borstein is here, Union Square. He's watched every single episode.
Welcome again, Jonathan.
Yeah, he's amazing. Doug Levy's watched from San Francisco. These are both great friends of the show. Ashok is watching from India, from Kerala, India. Alex Gabor says Freenomix. And Paula Kiger is helping tonight produce the show and share and annotate comments. We recommend this to everybody. If you're doing something live, have a great producer like Paula in the hot seat, sharing links and comments, which she's been doing. And I think it makes a big difference. Ashok says, so thank you, Paula, very much. She's at Big Green Pen on Twitter, and she works with us on so many different projects. Ashok says, happy to see you here every day. And here she is. She's posting the links as we're talking, and so that works really well. Ghulam says, I love Scroll. He's from Kashmir. Thanks for being here. Paula's thanking all our sponsors, and also thank you. She's on call. Doug says that's quite a lineup. Linda, who's also on our Digimentors team. Hi there from New York Berkshires, and hi, Bob. Thanks for recommending the Loom Cube Panel Mini. So we don't want to leave people out of that, so tell us again.
Sure. Loom Cube is a company that makes those little LED lights for photography and for other purposes. And one of their newest products is called the Loom Cube Panel Mini. And it's about the size of a credit card, really. But it has enough power within that little cube to illuminate this video, if I had one, really well. And it's smart. You can adjust the color temperature to match what's around you. So if you had daylight coming in through the window, you could tweak the light so it matches, instead of some of these lights which are fluorescent. So you get that greenish, bluish cast on your face. I had recommended it in your blog, Sree, a week ago. For those who don't know, I do a tech tip at the end of Shree's weekly blog. And the Loom Cube Panel Mini was my first one. I'm going to order mine soon, but it's a nice device.
And it's in our newsletter, which you can also find at sreenet.substack.com. What happened, Bob, is that, as you know, when I started my newsletter several years ago, it was all digital. And then as I've watched in horror as this country has come down several pegs from where it was, I have been more political and more outspoken and drifted away from the digital roots of what we were doing, tech tips. So I said, can I get my my tech guru to jump in with some tech tips? And he's doing one every week. So every Sunday, please look for that. And you can find it at sreenet.substack.com. Just subscribe and you'll get a chance to read his great tips. Let's keep going.
I just want to say, Sree, that Vandana obviously pays attention, because she knew she was going to be away from a power outlet for a while. So she had all sorts of power on her in the form of portable battery packs like this one. And this is one by My Charge. Try to hold it so that it's the My Charge Hub Turbo. As you can see, it has 2 wires attached. And if you want to charge it, you have the little power adapter at the bottom. I'll get it off screen. But yeah, in this pandemic, you don't want to be reaching for an AC outlet. Travel with power. You don't want to touch anything that you don't have to.
That's to travel with your own power if you can. Wonderful point, and really important. So let's see so many comments coming in from all over. Linda says, I remember a Christmas in July Samsung event in like '98 where they had a mock-up of a refrigerator with a computer on the door where you could put a shopping list of notes for the family. I have one of those. It's called a whiteboard. And I do want to say that my fridge in our home has died. The freezer's working, so we've been without a fridge for several days, and it's been an interesting exercises in defreezing, deep freezing, unfreezing, thawing, cooking. I'm lucky that I have 3 other great cooks in my house, so the dog and I eat well because the others do all the cooking. So we're very grateful. Let's see. Paula's telling you where to find Vandana. And Ravi says, yes, be careful. Keep away from folks not disciplined about social distancing. Very, very important. And Paula is also telling her to be safe. My mom is watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. Hi, Acha. Love you. Ravi says, I wished Eid al-Adha a few days ago and would say Jai Sri Siaram too. Raghav says there's too much fanaticism in the world. People need to chill and celebrate each other, particularly during this COVID difficult time. Did you see what he did there? COVID difficult. He combined COVID and difficult. That's pretty clever. Let's see. Mark is watching from Durham, North Carolina, and very a great friend of the show, and he's been on multiple times to talk about his work. Let's see here. Adam says, "Oh, thanks for always bringing the best." Well, I certainly do my best. And Apollo says, "Hi, Bob. Good to see you, and Vandana and Paula. Be safe. Will 5G mean much for quantum computing?"
Well, you're going to need the bandwidth. That type of computing in, say, the college campus would probably be wired anyway. But the short answer is yes, it will help. Anything that improves throughput will help quantum computing.
Ashok says, thanks, Vandana, for the live update from Ayodhya. I just felt like it was from Ayodhya. It's from Times Square. So that was interesting. And Apollo says, the Michelle Obama podcast clarifies this change in America will take years to fully effect, but it is so diverse. May I ask you, Bob, as an African-American, what do you think about this moment? Are you hopeful? Are you still upset about the continuing injustices that we see, including the latest results of a study showing that African Americans are, I think it was 5 times more likely to die from coronavirus, and stats like that? Well, where are you? Where's your head these days?
I guess I'm still worried about where we're going to go. I'm worried about, I'm not crazy worried, but I am worried about the elections, COVID-19. I thought that we were reaching slowly a period of peace between protests and police dust-ups. And then just the other day, we had that incident in, I believe, Aurora, Colorado, where the entire family, including children, are arrested and placed face down on a pavement. And it turns out that the police thought the car was stolen, but it turns out that they read the license plate wrong. It belonged to a motorcycle. So, why handcuff the children? So I
did not. Sorry, Bob. I did not hear that story before. How is that possible that they could get that wrong? And even if the parents are accused of something, why are they doing that to the children?
I had to. It's one of those moments, and we've had plenty of them, when you look at the TV and you say to yourself, I didn't see that. And then you look again and you have to shake your head and it's like, yes, I did. And yes, the children and the older folks were all on the pavement. And luckily there was somebody in the parking lot to film it. And apparently the person who filmed it met the family later. I saw a hug, but yeah, just blowing me away in this moment in time that could still happen.
And especially when the police know they're under so much scrutiny. That's the amazing part to me. We've been watching in Portland, we've been watching elsewhere. You shake your head and then you think this is not happening. And as you said, it is. In terms of, we spoke about we've spoken about your parents in the past on the show. When you were growing up, did you have to have the talk that we talk about among Black folks, which is different from the talk we have with our kids? We talk about drugs and sex and things like that, but for African Americans, there's another talk that needs to happen.
Well, I remember when I went from PS32, the 5th grade, to when I graduated PS32 on Hoyt Street in Brooklyn. My next school, it didn't have a 6th grade. I had to be bused to a school in Bay Ridge, which is mainly white. So I don't remember getting any tips from my parents as to how to handle the children. My father, I don't remember him saying anything. But what did happen is I met a lot of new friends, and I learned how people live differently. There were real houses in Bay Ridge that some of my friends lived in. None of my friends in the Gowanus projects had houses with backyards. So I learned a lot then through interacting with different people. And it turns out that a lot of the people I met in junior high school, I lost for decades and found just 3 years ago on Facebook. So I'm actually friends with them again. So we didn't have to talk, and I'm glad I had that experience that young, because the stereotypes about white people, I did not get that from my parents. They did not. My father later in life gave me warnings, but as a young kid, no, that conversation wasn't had.
Since we're mentioning your dad, tell us about his profession, and we always pay tribute to essential workers. He would have been an essential worker in what's happening today.
Right. He worked at a number of places, including Republic Aviation on Long Island. But the end of his career, most of the 20 some odd years, was spent in the New York City subways at the Coney Island subway yard. So I always think of, whenever I ride the subways, I think of him. And as models of trains get retired, I think that my father would have worked on that model. They just tried to retire the R32 subway car. They've been trying to do that for years. And they finally did a few weeks ago. They finally said, these are done. These built in 1964, so my father would have worked on them. And now they're being retired, but no, now they're not. They had some problems with the newest subway cars, the R179s. They had a number of issues, so guess what? The R32s are running again. Some of my father's handiwork is still out there somewhere.
Somewhere your dad is smiling, I'm sure, where they try to get rid of the cars that he worked on.
Some electrical system that he might have maintained is out there still.
This is what I was saying about when I said to someone, this fridge we bought 4 years ago is already on the fritz. They said fridges used to last 20 years, 25 years, right? Like that used to be, you bought a fridge because it was a very expensive, it's still expensive, of course, but something expensive that you held on to, and you just made it work. And it didn't need to be too fancy and have electronics in it. But
who was that who complained? Come on, don't you really need a refrigerator that can tell you the weather, check your email, and let you know if somebody's at the door? Isn't that a necessity nowadays?
Yes, it might be. Nobody's at the door. That's the short answer. Is that nowadays nobody's at the door. In terms of trying to understand the news and keep up with it, you have been kind enough to pick out a few stories that you wanted us to look at, and I was trying to get access to one of the pieces, and I was having a little bit of trouble, but I did want to show everyone a picture of the person you wanted to talk about. So let's start there, and I'm going to show this picture of my friend Mukul Pandya as he introduced and was interviewing the great Pete Hamill. So tell us about Pete and what. I wanted to say hello to Mukul, who's a great friend.
Well, anybody who read newspapers, especially the tabloids, between say from 1960 to 2000, read Pete Hamill. either in the Daily News, the New York Post, or read one of his books, or saw him covering something while on network TV. Pete Hamill, one of the best known newspaper columnists of his generation, died today. He was 85, I believe. And I worked at the New York Daily News. I did not meet him there, but I met him at a number of special occasions. And to me, he's an icon. He's one of the people who understood New York, who acted like a New Yorker, spoke with that New York accent, drank like a newspaper reporter is supposed to, and otherwise was an icon of his generation. I saw him speak 2 years ago on the NYU campus. I believe the Deadline Club had invited me to it. He was frail then. He had to be helped on stage. And apparently he had a fall a few days ago, but that sort of was the last straw. I guess some other things in his body couldn't take it, and he passed away today. But this is one of New York's iconic columnists. He was editor at different times of the New York Daily News and the New York Post.
And he was just a great raconteur, a great storyteller, not just in print, but also when you met him in person. I had a chance to meet him a couple of times because of my work at Columbia Journalism School. And one day we were chatting, and he told us about his secret of staying healthy. Let me just pull up, sorry, here, 1 second. Let me just pull up this. So this is a story in the AP, but he told us his secret of staying healthy and not worrying about his weight is he didn't eat much after a certain point in his life, didn't eat much after in the evening. He tried to have a heavier lunch and breakfast and a very light meal so that you're not going to bed on a full stomach. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and I filed that away in my head. But let me just read this to you if I can, Bob. Pete Hamill was one of the city's last great crusading columnists, and links to journalism days of chattering typewriters and smoke-filled banter, an Irish American, both tough and sentimental, who related to the underdog and mingled with the elite. Well-read, well-rounded, and very well-connected, Hamill was at ease quoting poetry and Ernest Hemingway, dating Jacqueline Onassis, and enjoying a drink and a cigarette at the Old Lion's Head Tavern in Greenwich Village. I think that captures him pretty well. And not many people can have a life like that, but Pete did. And just the fact that he came and spoke to students or spoke to journalists, as Bob said, tells you something about the man.
And let me quote something that was printed in The Observer, which is the digital remnant of The Observer, a weekly newspaper that used to appear in New York City. On their website, they covered that presentation Pete Hamill made in 2018. And this is a quote. "I bought a plot in Greenwood Cemetery right next to Boss Tweed," he said, "because if there's an afterlife, who wants to be a saint?" So that's truly Pete Hamill, that he would say something like that. Boss Tweed, for those who don't know New York City's history, is one of the great political thieves of all time. It would take too long to go into it, but if there was graft to be had, Boss Tweed grabbed it. And he is buried in a big tomb in Brooklyn, which I'm sure he arranged with his cronies before he died. But
so Pete's point was, like, if you're going to hang out in the afterlife, you want to hang out with the rogues.
Yes.
Because it'll be more fun, and that may be true. So let's see here. And I'm not sure, is that actually true, or he just said that he bought a plot next to him?
I would not be surprised if he found a way to find a plot close to a Boss Tweed. It's part of actually, you can take the tour of that cemetery. It's actually not bad. But I wouldn't be surprised if Pete Hamill knew the right person to ask to get a plot near Boss Tweed.
And Paula is linking to a documentary that HBO made about Breslin and Hamill. And that's another famous journalist, Jimmy Breslin, and she's linking to articles. This is that amazing work that Paula does for us here, and also on our other show that we do. It's called the New York Times Read Along, where we are reading the New York Times out loud like crazy people. And this coming up this Sunday is a fantastic conversation with Elaine Ciolino, contributing editor, writer, and former Paris bureau chief of the New York Times. She's been based in France since 2002. And so we're going to be interviewing her and reading the paper out loud at 8:30 a.m. Eastern on Sundays. We do this every single Sunday, and you can find the archives at youtube.com/SreeNet, youtube.com/SreeNet. Let's see some of the other comments coming in. Mark says, Chapel Hill health experts are asking UNC to delay opening, I think, about 5 weeks, which is very dramatic as we can. So he's in Durham, so all that area. We talked to two friends of ours who are both doctors. They are not sending their children into Manhattan Public School because they are so worried about the safety of their kids. When the doctors are doing that, while we have people petitioning and protesting and wanting their kids to go to school, that's what I don't understand. If you absolutely have no choice, you're worried about your kids' safety, then the school is a place of safety and even food, right? For families that can't afford to feed their children properly. Those people protesting, I completely understand. Are those people demanding school happen? Yes. But I see a lot of other folks who are just the anti-vaxxer types and others protesting, demanding school be opened. That's where I'm kind of lost a little bit, Bob.
Yes, Columbia is taking it slow. It's fling the doors open at this point.
Yeah. Rick says trolling is universal. The ultimate irony is to be called a troll by alt-right extremist trolls on Unheard. I'm not even sure what Unheard is.
There we go. Now we're back.
Okay.
My connection went out for one
Okay.
second.
No, but yeah, it's all good. And Mark says there is a minority-owned company that is about charging phones. Think it's called Battery Exchange, where you go in and exchange a battery. And Apollo says he's coming over for dinner. I wouldn't be surprised. Apollo has lived in Las Vegas, in New York, and has lived in India. So he's done a better job than many of us, but he's in Vegas right now. He was on our show to talk about life in Vegas. It was so interesting and so illuminating. Here's an article about the Aurora police and what happened with that black family. Sudha is watching from Hastings-on-Hudson. Hi, Sudha. Paulo says the Aurora PD is paying for the counseling of the children. It goes back to the idea that black people are criminal, and I think that they are soul searching in Aurora. And Aurora, was also the place where they had that terrible lone gunman shooting a few years ago in that theater. He went into a Batman movie and massacred all of those places. And Paul is putting in some non-paywalled articles about that. And Mark says, want to thank you for introducing me to Liz Pritchard and Anna Paxman. Had them on my show about disability activism. Also at Kyle Gibson and Indy, Florida governor candidate. That's a long way away, the Florida governorship, right? I presume. Apollo says, yes, a fridge lasted as long as a mortgage. Remember the Maytag man? That's a good comparison, isn't it, Bob? The fridge that lasts as long as a mortgage. I like that. That should be the slogan of some of these folks. Paula says, apologies for adding this so late because our discussion has moved on, but here's information about the folding phone we discussed. Thank you, Paula. You're just so awesome. You had picked out a couple of other stories, Bob. Shall we call them up?
A quick question, and I don't want to slow us down. Is it possible for me to share my screen for a second?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Please do.
If I clicked, would it go through?
Yes, you should.
Okay, I will try to do it quickly. Let me make sure I have the right thing up.
And the right tab up and everything. Folks, you're watching a conversation with Bob Anthony for our New York, for news you missed. Bob also said something to me very important that I will pick up with him after he's done sharing. I asked him, when will Bob Anthony go to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show? And he said, I will not go this year, not until there's a vaccine. And I said, having CES without Bob Anthony is like having having Sundance without another Robert Redford. And he And guess what, folks? There is no CES this year. They have announced that CES will be, I guess it's not postponed, it's canceled. It'll just happen again in 2022. So just think about that. What Bob predicted and what I concluded has in fact happened. So what are we looking at, Bob?
This is a picture taking, I like it because it was taken in the Daily News newsroom when the Daily News was still at 450 West 33rd Street. The very first person on the left is Norman Mailer, the famous, right? The person in the center is Pete Hamill, of course. And the person on the right is Bill Bell of the New York Daily News. And he's near and I'm sorry to say the late Bill Bell as well. He was another former president of the Deadline Club, of which I was the president in the same era. So this picture resonates with me. Later in my life, this picture's from the 90s. In the early 2000s, I was a copy editor of the Daily News, and I would have been working basically over Hamill's shoulder in the back. So in any case, that's why I wanted to show this picture, and I'll stop sharing at this point.
No, but I love when we are able to show old pictures and show old newsrooms. Some of you will remember that we had on our show my former professor Peter Herford, and here's his newsroom picture that he shared. And Bob, I don't know if you ever saw this, but that's Walter Cronkite getting the news of the shooting in Dallas of President Kennedy, and over his shoulder in those glasses in the back is Peter Herford looking at the wire and trying to understand the story. And that's 1963. You know, there's something, Bob, that you could reflect on for me. What is missing when you work remotely? You, of course, as a freelance writer and you run your own business, you are used to it now. But as the world debates remote versus in-person, especially journalism, where are we in terms of the importance of the kind of newsrooms we just looked at, the Daily News in the 2000s and going all the way back to 1963?
All morning, as I attended the NAHJ virtual conference, people were waxing poetic on how much better this would be if they could actually meet in small groups and talk about news coverage, talk about what was done right and done wrong. It's not the same when you're posing in front of a camera, as opposed to over a dinner table or in the corner of or in a hotel lobby even. That's what's being missed. In a normal newsroom, you would be walking to talk to somebody for a few minutes about something and then taking care of something else at the other side. It's a whole different way of managing your thought process. What's happening today is pretty good. We do get to talk to each other, but tech has glitches, and you don't get the same emotion sent through the camera as you would if I were sitting next to you at your place.
And so what is your prediction about when these large gatherings can happen again? One of the things I don't know if you saw the astonishing interview in Axios, Trump and Jonathan Swain, where Jonathan says, you had, I forget, 6,000 people in the auditorium, and he said, no, I had 12,000. And Jonathan saying, the point is, you had the largest indoor gathering in the entire pandemic was on you. And Herman Cain died attending that rally, not wearing a mask, talking about how great it is to be free and not being, pushed to wear a mask. And the poor man died. You don't wish it on anybody. But there's no empathy, there's no sympathy. And he said, it is what it is when you talk about 1,000 Americans dying every single day.
At this point, you just have to discount this guy. You just have to look past them and cover around him. He has no real grasp of the situation. You're right. He's arguing numbers when that wasn't the point in that question. He said 12,000 instead of 6,000. And of course, it was a huge mistake. And unfortunately, Herman Cain apparently paid the price going among those people without a mask. So, yeah, this is journalism will continue to be tough to handle in the next few months. Meetings, trade shows, and whatnot, even though some of the companies that run them have been sending out emails talking about how they're getting ready to return to trade shows. I'm not optimistic. CES will be virtual, which blows my mind.
And that's really hard for people to believe, right? That a virtual show can do what we expect from a traditional trade show. CES for people, Consumer Electronics Show, it's what, 100,000 people, something like that?
Yes, I believe the last one was 180,000. And yeah, they finally made the decision after hedging for a few months that it would be virtual. But that's packed exhibition halls normally, and so they couldn't possibly do that. I see you have another item up on the.
Yeah. So how can you believe that mask fights echo seatbelt fights? The right to be splattered all over their windshield, like, oh my God, like what? This is America. Like this happens in some places, but this especially happens in America. And under a Republican administration that pushed through mandatory seatbelts, Elizabeth Dole, the wife of Robert Dole, the famous senator and candidate against Bill Clinton in '96, she pushed this through, and she had to fight off people who said we have the right not to wear a seatbelt. And I mean, that's where we are now. I think it's a really good comparison. And if I look at this picture here, I see Sam Donaldson on the upper left. Yes, and on the right, I think that's Frank Sesno, who was on CNN for many years with the glasses looking down, who some of you will know from CNN. And this is just, this also shows you how far the Republican Party has come. As you know, the Clean Air Act was signed by President Nixon. The seatbelt laws introduced by Reagan, and here we are now. We demand the right to die, basically. And the problem is, as terrible as it sounds, if you want to die, that's one thing, but you can't control that, right? We all suffer, and we'll all die with you. That's the problem.
Elizabeth and Bob were definitely different types of Republicans than what I'm seeing today. I met Bob Dole in Milwaukee when he was running against Bill Clinton, I guess, for the presidency. And he came to our editorial meeting. One of the editorial writers wasn't in, so I was filling in, and I got to sit in on the meeting. And Bob Dole went right into his platform, and I forget what all of the issues were. But coming out of that meeting, even though Bob didn't change my mind on any of the issues, he convinced me that he had nothing except the best interests of this country at heart. He wasn't faking it. Everything he said he believed in, and he believed in with a passion. That was a different kind of Republican and I'm not saying they're all fakes, but to the fakes that we see today, and Trump obviously being the best example.
I mean, look at, one of the things I said to all the fiscal conservative Republicans who believe in the principles of free market economics. Come get your boy, is what I said when Trump is now saying that he's forcing the sale of a private company to another private company, and that America should get a piece of that business. If a Democrat had said that, the world would have turned upside down. Republicans would be angry. Do you remember Obama said, you didn't build that, which he meant that we don't build these businesses on our own. It's built on, the engineers you hire went to free public school. They got loans to go to college, right? Like, it takes a society to build a business. I run a very small business, as you know, Bob, and I know that I didn't build that. I would never say I built that. So do you remember characters like Joe the plumber and others who got so angry at Obama for even just saying that? If Obama has said, you, Mr. Company, need to sell to this other company, first of all, that would be bad. And then the United States government should get a piece of it, Republicans would have lost their mind. And instead, they're enabling him. And that's the tragedy of all this.
It's like, exactly. It's a different era, which, quite frankly, I wasn't prepared for. These last 4 years, I remember saying that we can't do 4 years like this, and here we are, 3.5 years, and we have, much to our deficit. I don't see the room in the current administration where there's the people in the administration, at the top of the administration, that can reverse this, that can change things. So on those grounds alone, I don't see the reason why this administration should be given another chance. I'm stepping out of my journalist role for a second and giving an opinion, but I just don't see the turnaround based on the product that they've provided, if you can call it that. But it's a strange time to be a journalist with the attacks that he and his new press secretary, Kayleigh, have been making on the media. It's just a heck of a time to be a Washington journalist.
Thank you, Bob. Let's see here. Here's Jonathan's quote: "Not just seatbelts, but smoking, motorcycle helmets, vaccines, and so on." And Jonathan is a motorcycle rider and expert, right, Jonathan? And so you know the battles that people have fought. And Apollo says, "LOL, come get your boy." And Rick says, "When will people start to talk about the deep state of fake patriotism? Can you help, Sree?" And he's put in a link to a LinkedIn piece, so I hope you all check that. And Apollo says, "I miss Rockefeller Republicans. Have fun, but keep it fiscally responsible."
There's a name I haven't heard for a while. The former governor of New York State and former vice president, actually, under Gerald Ford.
"I heard a friend predict that banks are about to disappear except for in major centers and others. The small town bank is about to fade away. I find that scary because it's great having your own personal bank relationships." Tell us what we miss and what we lose when this kind of stuff happens.
The local banks, is that the question?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Technology. I'm not holding you responsible, Bob, but maybe we should.
Oh, but even in the 80s, there was a time when the banks did not open branches in poor neighborhoods. There was a very interesting study. I'm going back to my newspaper history again, of this guy in Milwaukee who found out that a bank wasn't making loans. But he found the data that proved they were redlining. And it got to the point where he challenged the bank's state charter. So what happened? They opened up a few branches in Milwaukee's Black community. They provided local loans. They provided local business, small business support. And so, yeah, local banks make a difference. Going to Lower Manhattan Financial District to do your banking is nowhere near the same as that neighborhood bank and the people who know you. So if that's one of the victims of this pandemic, it would be a big shame.
"I write for Riders Digest, a British motorcycle magazine started by dispatch riders, motorcycle messengers for dispatch riders, hence the odd name." Let's remind folks, if you can, Bob, about our friend who is a journalist, photographer, and bike messenger who was on our show and showed us New York that we couldn't see ourselves.
Yes, my good friend Kurt Boone. What is his moniker? Messenger 841 is his number. He's like Sree said, he's a journalist, a poet, and a book author. But his main job that earns him the money is a bicycle messenger, which he's been doing for a few decades. So while the rest of us are at home, he's doing his job, delivering documents to businesses around the city and taking pictures. He has a book out. He had a book out years ago called Subway Beats. He took pictures around the subway. Now he has a planned book for, I don't know what the title will be, but it'll be Pandemic New York. The photos he's taken during these awful past few months. Great guy, Kurt Boone. Just look him up.
Please Google him with my name, and then you'll be able to find the episode. Kurt Boone, B-O-O-N. And
B-O-O-N-E. Kurt with a K, K-U-R-T, B-O-O-N-E. He would.
Kurt Boone, correct. Thank you so much. So, Bob, what's in store for your work, and how are you managing through the pandemic? Last time we talked, you were reporting to us about a building collapse right nearby.
Right, that was a few weeks ago, and I won't go into all the details, but those who live in Carroll Gardens near the corner of Court and Union Streets remember the gym building that used to be on that corner. And I woke up to the news that it had collapsed, and it was one of the big stories actually on network news that day. So I walked past it the other day just to see what had become of the lot. Every bit of the building is now gone. There's a chain link fence around the lot. And for a while, there was a second store door on the building next to it. They had shared an office between two buildings that was up there, and it said, I forget what the door said, but it just seemed strange hanging out there on the second floor where you couldn't get to it without a ladder. That's been bricked over since. So the neighborhood is still quiet, but the good thing is I'm seeing a lot of these outdoor restaurant setups. So some of the restaurants are getting back to it.
Look at that. Kurt is watching. He says, thank you for the shout out. Isn't that awesome?
There we go. That's fabulous, Kurt. Good. I'm glad he's here. He's a great guy.
I know you alerted your fan club, but still, he's watching an hour and 11 minutes into the show. And Mark says,
when he probably worked, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Shucks, I miss Nixon Republicans. They may have a scandal and all that, but they did support some development in black businesses and other endeavors. I consider Nixon a moderate Republican, and we know who his number one fan was, right? Roger Stone, who is, of course, Trump and Roger Stone are deeply connected. Apollo says, those New York mic messengers, man, hats off. I delivered food in Manhattan on a bike and always looked up to those guys. Some of them don't have brakes on that bike. Man, he says, and that's Kurt Boone. So everybody find Kurt, follow him on Twitter, watch my episode with him. We would love to. We promised that we would get together after the pandemic, which we thought, this must have been May when he joined us. And I was thinking by August, we're having these parties, we're getting together. And now look at where we are. My birthday, my 50th birthday is October 28th. I think we're going to still be doing the party.
I'll put a piece of cake on ice in my freezer for that day. How's that?
Thank you. And Kurt is right there with Messenger 841 and Kurt Boone Photography. Kurt, you got to come back on the show and tell us how New York is changing and all that's going on. We'd love to have you back. It's at some point. New York has changed a lot. Obviously, the protests also put people on the street. I have a comment for you in the private chat there, Bob, when you get a chance. So, folks, we're going to shortly wrap up. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. We'd love to hear them. We have a lot going on that we want to tell you about, including tomorrow. We have a very special show. We are here at noon instead of at 9 p.m. And the reason we're at noon is because we have this show at 8 o'clock that we are producing. Our team is putting together, and this is the show about Detroit that we're putting together. So you'll want to tune in for that for sure. And you can do that. This is Little Steven's Roadshow, co-hosted by Drew Carey. Please tune in. Yeah, Alice Cooper is one of the guests. Wayne Kramer, Martha Reeves from Motown, Nick Speed, and others. Detroit is August 6th, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'd love for you to join us. Please RSVP, very easy to do, at teachrock.org/roadshow, hosted by Stevie Van Zandt. You know him from the E Street Band, and you know him from The Sopranos and Lilyhammer, and Drew Carey from The Price is Right and everything else on TV. And tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. in Geneva, WHO and journalists. Vismita Gupta-Smith will be with us, Head of Strategy, the Department of Communication, World Health Organization. We'll learn about how WHO works to educate journalists about pandemics, including via this free course that you can sign up for. So you may not be able to read that link now, but you'll see it tomorrow, bit.ly/WHO MOOC 1. MOOC, of course, is a massive open online course. So if you would like to join us, please do. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. You will learn a lot. I promise you for that. So we are just going to wrap up here. We're just looking at some more comments, Bob, that have been coming in. Apollo says, this was an awesome show. Thank you so much. Mark says, here is relationship to Floyd McKissick, a Black Power advocate and creator of Soul City and Nixon. That would be interesting to look at. And Paula says, RSVP at teachrock.org/roadshow. And Kurt says, I'm covering protest graffiti and street art on retail window plywood in Soho and Manhattan. My hat's off to you. Apollo says you got it. Oh my God, so want to see the WHO show. Thank you, Apollo, 1 p.m. Eastern. And Mark is putting in a link. What Nixon can teach the GOP about courting black voters. And not everyone will agree that Nixon was the best person for the black community, but that's the good news, that there was a time when you could have differences, where everybody was not considered a monolith and all of that. And here's where we are. Jonathan says, great show with an unusual range. Thank you so much. And we're so grateful whenever our friend Bob Anthony joins us. So now, before we go, Bob, will you join me in saying their names? As you know, we do this at the behest of the great Kimberly Crenshaw, the professor who coined the term intersectionality. I asked her, what can allies do? She said, say their names. So we're going to do that. And thank you, Bob, for joining me in that process. Can you set the stage a little bit about the Say Their Name movement, why it's important that we say their names?
Well, as journalists, we end up covering the incidents, we end up covering the tragedies, and the victims get connected to the tragedies, period. We don't end up knowing their humanity. We don't end up knowing about family life, what their road in life was like, what got them to the point of the tragedy. So saying their names remind us that these are real people with real families, and each and every one of them is a real loss to us, because society is poorer that they're not because they're not around.
Thank you. So let's take this picture. On the left, you see that is Titus Kaffir, the great artist in Time magazine. His painting of a young mother and her young child taken away. And on the right is this photograph of Lacinia Floyd with young George Floyd. She would die 2 years almost to the day that he was killed. And now they're both buried in Houston together. He, of course, was killed in Minneapolis. Bob, I've not really seen this photo in many other places. I saw this in Time magazine, and I see it every day on this show, and I still can't get over it. Bob, your thoughts on seeing this photograph?
It reminds me, it's, the first time I saw it on your show, it made me pause. It made me glance at it twice. And of course, it brought out some emotion, because it's so sad that the anniversary, the days that they passed, the dates were so close. And you see that picture of the mother and the child, and it just gives you an idea of what society has lost. Society, a human being has been lost that could have had a more of a road, a longer life, but did not, because of in this case, a murder.
So if we can, we will now say their names. These are not all the names, sadly. Even these few names are too many names. But I'll start. I'll say a few names, and then you'll take over, and then we'll switch back and forth. The names are Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown.
Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris.
Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart.
So Samuel DeBose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Roquemore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Joseph Mann.
Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stefan Clark.
Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Botham Jean, Atiana Jefferson.
Michael Dean, Ahmaud Arbery.
Breonna Taylor.
And George Floyd. And this is, of course, a very incomplete list, Bob, but we still must say their names and think of every one of these people has a story. Now, some of these names are well known because of the media coverage, But even in this list, there are so many names that I don't know the story. I can't pick out the exact incident. But Botham Jean, I will never forget. A man eating dinner in his own house, watching TV, and a police officer walks in, confused, she says, because the doors look the same, sees a black man sitting in what she thought was her couch, and her reflex was to shoot him dead. It was not like he was attacking her because he had the right for self-defense, right?
And
he was not defending his house. He was just sitting there. So imagine, even if she did walk into her house and see a man sitting there, the first thing you do is, okay, if you're a police officer, pull out your gun, sure, but you shoot him dead. And that's what's so frustrating about this, or any of these other stories. Breonna Taylor's story is also very familiar and very, very similar to this. Your thoughts?
And Akai Gurley is the one that resonates with me, because this was somebody who was shot in the staircase of a housing project. A police officer was coming down the steps, and apparently the lights were out in the stairwell, and Akai Gurley was coming upstairs. And that's all he did. He was coming upstairs. For some reason, the police officer had his gun out. He wasn't investigating a crime. He was just on routine patrol. And something spooked the police officer. He shot, and Gurley's dead, just for walking up the stairwell of his own project building. So yeah, the names resonate differently to different people.
They certainly do. And thank you for saying them with me. There's so much power in those names. Again, I've got pushback, Bob. I don't know if I've ever told you this, from people say, why do you do this? Some of them are criminals. And that's not the point. Even if somebody is guilty of something, first of all, you don't know. And if they were guilty, there is a system for it. The police officers are not judge, jury, and executioner. That's the whole point, right? We hold the police to a higher standard. People start saying, oh, what about black on black violence? What about Chicago? What about this? We call it whataboutism, as you know, Bob. And what we're saying is, yes, there are terrible things happening in the world, but we hold our police to higher standards. Here are some comments. Apollo says, thank you for saying their names. Thank you, Apollo, for listening. Kurt, I'm crying, say their names. Thank you, Kurt, for being with us. And we have to do this, and we will keep doing it as long as we can. Paula says it's the most important part of the show. And thank you, Bob, for reading them with me. I feel the power of the names is even more powerful when we hear the pain that we are all going through. But when African Americans say this, it means something different, because you've been in staircases, you've been and you've sat in your apartment, you've not had a police officer walk in, but if he did, you don't know what will happen. People like me, even though we're a minority, I know that in this country I'm seen in a different way. By the way, after 9/11, I wrote about this a little bit, Bob, at one point, that I felt what it's like to be an African American for the first time after 9/11, getting up on a plane and just walking down the aisle, all eyes on you. Or even nobody should be subjected to this, but an African American man could have trouble getting a cab in this city, right? Just cab driver for just the way you look. And we had Mitchell Silver on, the New York City Parks Commissioner, who always has two phones with him, in part because he says the phones have been the kind of one of the greatest inventions for African Americans in their safety. And it was in his parks that the Cooper incident happened. Michael Cooper and the woman, I believe she was Amy, who called the cops on this black man for what was he doing? Being a man and just standing around interested in bird watching. That's all he did. And
all he asked you to do was leash your dog. That was the issue.
Yeah, in a birding area, right? Like,
yes, he was bird watching. Yes.
Yeah, and so you don't want a dog. And I'm a dog owner. I don't want a dog, if I'm a bird watcher, to have a dog disturb the peace there. And that's all he asked for. Thank you so much, Bob. You're an amazing friend, and you teach me so much every time we meet, including now in the Sunday newsletter that I write. And a reminder to everyone that we'd love for you to sign up for it. You can find it very easily. I'll just show everybody what it looks like so they can also sign up. And I'll show you the latest piece from Bob right now. And if we go in here, this was the last week we were looking at. So let me just pull back here and let's pull. Yeah, here you go. Tech tips with New York Bob. This was the Loom light, the Loom cube, right?
And yes, and
yeah. And that's the one. So you can find his tips in my newsletter, but he also tweets them out at New York Bob. Please find it and please share it with your friends. Please sign up. That would be great. And Mark says, I'm moved every time I hear those names. Just seeing a cop who might be the same color makes you pause. One of the saddest things I've seen in this time, Bob, is the video, I'm sure you've seen it, of a young boy playing in his backyard or in his front yard, playing basketball, and a cop car drives by. He must be 11, 12. What does he do? His instinct is to hide behind a car. For what? He's just playing basketball in his own driveway, but that's the instinct that these young boys have because of everything they see around them. I can't imagine white boys or Indian boys or South Asian boys having to hide like that as their first instinct when you're doing nothing. When you're a little boy, you do things that are, not always exactly what your parents want you to do. But we could see from that video, he was just playing basketball, throwing the ball around, and he sees the car, he ducks and hides behind a car as a patrolman goes by. I mean, that's the country we live in now.
And I know we're sort of wrapping up at this point, but would it be okay to end on sort of?
I'm sorry, you might be having tech. Sorry, go ahead again, Bob. I missed what you said, but yes, the answer is yes. Whatever you asked, yes.
Okay. I think I'm stable now. I'm using Ethernet, but I'm still having problems. But
and by the way, if Bob Anthony is having tech trouble, he's just doing it to make you feel at home, so that you understand that this is what I used to always say, that if I ever have tech troubles, it's done to make you feel okay, because we all have tech troubles, right? It's not your fault.
This was just a demo, exactly. But I just wanted to end on a lighter note, because Pete Hamilton is one of my newspaper heroes. And in one of the obits that I read today, Pete said one of his greatest days was when he got his first press pass. And so I just happened to find this the other day. This is my old Columbia Daily Spectator press pass, 1976. Probably won't stay in focus. But it's the student.
Hold it back a little bit. Yeah, right there. That's it. Perfect. Yeah, I see it. 1976. Yeah, hold it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's when I was sports. Well, actually, let's do. Well, I can't. I keep doing it the wrong way. 1976. I was the sports editor of the Columbia student paper. But this is one of the. Well, this won't work because of the green screen, I guess. But this is my press pass for the old Milwaukee Sentinel, and let's see if it'll focus, and it will not. But that's what
a younger Mr. Anthony there.
Yes.
No, thank you for sharing that. And the press pass is one of the reasons that journalists have when you get a New York City press pass, they allow you to cross those blue barricades at parades and things like that. They don't let you get too close, but at least you have that. And there you go. Look at you, always improvising. There you go. I see it. Who's that signed by? Do you remember your editor's name? Who's
it's
that?
My old sports editor. I don't believe he's in journalism now. But he's. This is when I was covering soccer for the Spectator. Great student paper.
And we should point out that 1976 is like around the time the NASL and the Cosmos were the toast of. Not the whole town, but some parts.
Yes.
And to imagine how big soccer would become after Pele played for the New York Cosmos, and that was an incredible time in the 70s, right? I caught the very tail of that in 1980 when I moved here.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I brought a friend, she might even be watching tonight, to a Cosmos game when Pele was playing at Downing Stadium on Randall's Island. And I remember one of the last events I took my father to in that era, anyway, was a Cosmos playoff game where Pele scored the last goal by winding his way through the entire, Tampa Bay defense. It was beautiful.
Wow, that's what a story and what a memory to have with your father. And these are the kinds of things that you can't really do in pandemic times for those who still have their families with them. And that's why we say to everyone, you never know. So enjoy every moment you have, whether virtual or in real life. And with that, we'll say goodnight to Bob. I'll just do the ads and we'll let you go. Thanks very much, Bob Anthony. Everybody follow him. Robert Anthony's at New York Bob, all spelled out, on Twitter and all the channels, and find him on Pinterest. 1.2 million followers on Pinterest. And thanks very much, Bob. We'll see. Good night. Bob, always welcome on this show and so grateful every time he comes. A big shout out to Paula Kiger. She signed up to help us, and here we are, an hour and 30 minutes in. Thank you so much, Paula, for being here. A reminder of our wonderful sponsors. We want to thank Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media for journalists, PR pros, and everyone. Free certification now available, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. And I had Bob Anthony here, but we didn't talk about the TikTok ban. We should have, and what that means and the controversy. We talked a little bit about the economics, macroeconomics, and microeconomics part of that, but not everything. A reminder that tomorrow we have a terrific show, WHO and Journalists, and this is at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. in Geneva. So please join us for that. A big shout out to Pete Hamill and my friend Mukul Pandya in a show I hosted, an in-person event with the South Asian Journalists Association. And tomorrow, please join us for Little Stevens Roadshow, co-hosted by Drew Carey and Stevie Van Zandt. RSVP at teachrock.org/roadshow, teachrock.org/roadshow. The guest lineup includes Alice Cooper, Wayne Kramer, Martha Reeves, and Nick Speed. You don't want to miss that. And much thanks to our other sponsor, Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission, 20% off with the code SREE, SREE, SREE. And finally, we want to say hello to our friends at She's on Call, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Marina Kurian. Please go back and watch this episode from Sunday at 11 a.m. She's on Call on Facebook and Twitter. And next Sunday at 11 a.m., they have another great show. Let's take a look at any of the comments that are still coming in. Apollo says 1976. And thank you, Sree from Richmond, Virginia. Thank you so much, Roberta, for being part of us. And Mark says, thank you for being part of the struggle. It is an ongoing battle, but we will win. Yes, I like hearing that. Renee says, hello. Night, Bob. Night, Paula. You're welcome. Pleasure to be here. Ashok says, good morning from Mumbai and Diaspora Times. So thank you all for being here. If you missed it, we had an interview with Bob Anthony, who is our News You Missed correspondent. And he was here with us to talk about the news. But we then were able to have Vandana Menon with us. Vandana is one of our two producers, and she was able to bring us live from Times Square, the protests about what's happening in India. And a last thing to show you before we go, as always, is that we have a way for you to keep track of us. One is by subscribing on YouTube, youtube.com/Sreenet. Please subscribe and you will know when we're live. And the other is this very easy to use WhatsApp alert. And what it does is you just hold up your phone and you get a gentle alert every time we are live. It is not a WhatsApp group. WhatsApp groups can be trouble, as Bob Anthony knows, and they can suck up a lot of your time. But in this case, this is just a gentle reminder when we are live. We are going to have some incredible shows tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're talking to the WHO, World Health Organization. Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to start a series of conversations about politics with one of the leading political analysts and pollsters in the country. You're going to meet Charles Franklin, and he is a professor at Marquette. I know Mark Lee would be happy to hear that. So stay tuned for that, and please send us your feedback. You can see here we're always looking for speakers, for sponsors, for theme ideas, and for any collaboration you'd like to do. Please get in touch. I'm so grateful to all of you.